So, welcome, Mark, to our Learn With Us third day here. And I look very much forward because I think that you're just the headline necessary rethinking is, to me, is a nice, provocative headline. Maybe it's not as provocative as I think of it, but I am already looking forward to it. Before we get starting with the webinar today, let us hear a little bit. Who are you and what do you do?
So first of all, thanks for having me for this presentation. I'm really looking forward to have this presentation, that people are listening to it. For my personal part, I'm Mark Freitag, that's my name. I'm head of business development at Livonia Print. My target is the entire new digital world in our environment. That means by new production possibilities, to find the ways to communicate with the clients, what are the benefits for the clients, change a little bit their mindset, change a little bit the fearness for digital print, because I think this is still something what we find in our business, that there is some resistance. It's getting less. We will come to that later on that point. And I'm part of the digitization project, because it's not that you just buy a digital printer and then you're a digital publishing supplier. That's not the way.
It takes more than that, I guess.
It takes a little bit more than that. From my background, I'm coming from print finishing. So I was nearly 10 years at Müller Martini. So also there, Livonia was a good client from my side. And I changed just the roles, because for me, it was interesting to see that such things are working then in completely things, not just selling the machines and discussing and developing new technologies on these machines. It's more than about how is that impacting our industry.
And you know, that was great to hear, but I have also been a little bit unfair because we have my co-host here, Jean. We didn't even have a chance to say good morning to you. Good morning, Jean. How are you today?
Okay. Well, I think in the beginning I said I had 3 cups of coffee. So good morning. I'm fresh. I'm fresh and ready for the day. So,
yeah, that's perfect.
I just wanted to say to Mark, obviously just reading his headline and what this is about is music to my ears, because the box and what you do with it is one thing, but you taking it to the next level, and that's exactly what is going to be good to hear. So I want to see how you do this, because we might have to come and clone you in Germany and bring you to a few different countries.
But Mark is not working in Germany, Jean. He is actually working in a small country called Latvia. I don't know. You're from South Africa.
Latvia,
you don't know that.
It used to be one of my regions that I looked after, so that I was responsible for.
Fantastic. So again, before we talk about the necessary of the rethinking, Mark, how has the COVID-19 affected the book sales from your perspective?
Also from our perspective, for sure, we still have the challenges with the COVID-19 situation, especially now with these, let's say, changed viruses. But we are managing. That means for us in the part of production planning, scheduling, shifting, and so on, this is quite a challenge for us at Livonia Print. But on the other hand, we were in a very lucky position that for us, the market segment was growing in every direction. So somehow we were a winner in that situation, but still it's challenging time. Also, we have to say it's with regarding shipments, having everything in time, make sure that people are not matching by shift changes and such things. So we work quite hard that everything runs smoothly and we can supply the service to our clients as good as possible. And at the moment, I think everybody is more or less satisfied with it.
Fantastic.
Sounds great. So we have an audience. We have you, Mark, and we are actually live for the right time this time. So why don't you take it away? Jean and I, we will be listening and watching your entire presentation, and then we have time for Q&A. So also, dear attendee, if you have any questions, you can raise them in the chat, and then Jean and we will make sure that it gets to Mark's attention when he's finished with his presentation. And Mark has promised that this is not so much about drop sizes and technology, but I think more about business and the mindset of operating in a digital environment, right?
Yes, that's the main target. It's not about the technology; it's more about why it's necessary that we need to rethink.
Fantastic.
Well, take it away, Mark.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Let's start. So As that is headline for this presentation is start to rethink as an offset printer. We as offset printers for the publishing sector, I'm only speaking for the publishing sector, we need to recognize certain indicators, and with that we need to, let's say, formulate strategies how we can support our publishers in their problems what they have today. So let's begin the challenges of our clients, which we are inspecting and where we need to find solutions for them that we can help them. Because at the end, let's say we all sit in the same boat, and if the publishing sector is doing well, then we also as printers are doing well, and so on and so on. And the consumers have their products which they are looking for. So if we look at the, let's say, the product mix in a publishing house based like on a food pyramid, you have certain different types of products. So you have the bestsellers, you have new titles which you are releasing every year, you have everlasting titles which are more or less always available, you have slow selling titles or shopkeeper titles which you publish but they are not selling so well, and you have a huge bunch of backlist titles which there is a market, but let's say this market is not really allowing to place orders in huge runs anymore. So if we look now today how a publisher is deciding when to produce and how much to produce, they more or less look at it in a two-dimensional way. That means they see the costs and they see a run length. And if the costs are getting to a certain point where it makes sense, they place the order for the run lengths. To justify these orders, then they have certain information close, how much they could sell. So if the editor is coming with a new title or an existing title which they want to reprint, they are checking, and if the numbers are not correct, they won't produce the product because it doesn't make sense for them. So the target is that we need to look at, or the publishing house needs to look now in more or less in 3 dimensions. So I was building a little bit a different model that we are focusing on 3 dimensions. So we have the order size, we have a unit price, and we have a risk with these unit prices. So if we look, for example, at bestseller are doing quite well in selling. So you have large runs, or more or less large runs in these days. What we talk about large runs, which has a lower unit price and a very low risk. The same counts for new titles. They are selling in the beginning quite well. But then it's starting that everlasting titles, run lengths are not so big anymore on offset. The risk is getting higher that you have unsold books and so on, also with the slow selling and backlist titles. So let's say a lot of the content is in long term not anymore for the consumers available because the risk for the publishing house is too high to place an offset order in that direction. So in the idle world, we need to separate them. That means we look on the product and on the sales possibilities, and then with that you place an order in a size, let's say more on demand way, where you reduce the risk on everything on the same level. So that you give a certain flexibility to the publishers that they don't have the risk of burning money and have committed money in the flow where is no cash, because this is always a problem for our publishers. So with changing on this look, the capital commitment is shrinking. And this is a very important factor because also a publishing house needs to be profitable. But if all the turnover is wind up in unsold books, it doesn't help the publishing house, and in long term that has big consequences. So the challenge from our customers is to reduce their risk. And this comes to our challenge. This comes to our challenge because we need to find ways how we can make something like that possible. How we can make short runs possible, that it's matching to the strategies of the publishing houses and still be a profitable business also for them. So if we look at the books price split, because this is a very important factor, it doesn't mean that I can produce short run to any price, because I just have a certain part of the book price available, which I can use for production and which is allowed from production. It can vary a little bit based on the product type. If it's a backlist title, you have less other costs, rest of the costs, what a publisher has. But at the end, it needs to be in a common way that the business case to place an order, even in a shorter run, makes sense for the publishing house. The challenge and what that means for us is then we need to find a way how to build up a production. Also we need to understand our existing production. We need to find a way how to build up our production that it matches with these new requirements, what we see from the clients. And that means we need to rethink our processes and we need to rethink what we can do to make something like that possible. So if we take now in consideration that the clients want to place an order, let's say in 350 run length, because it's a backlist title or it's a slow selling title where still there's a market, but let's say it doesn't give the figures for large runs. And we look at then on the cost splitting, we see quite fast that the costs are accrued for such a run in printing. That means in offset printing, 80% of the cost of the product comes from printing. So this shows you quite quickly in which step you need to do something to reduce those costs and make something like that possible. Now a little bit back end to see the trends. As I mean, we also need to understand how our publishers are placing order, what type of products are they placing over, and what is interesting these days in that market. So if we look at these trends, that's the figures, growth rates between 2019 and 2020 by product types. You see quite quickly that the simple products like a soft cover glued, yes, there is a small growth, but it's not the big portion where we see that there are more requests from our publishers. It's more when the products are getting more sophisticated, like soft cover soon has a growing rate, hardcover glued, because there you have certain additional components to the product which makes it more interested. And hardcover soon, it's a very fast-growing product from our side. Also in the printing technologies, we see, okay, 4-color is extremely high demand and good growth rates. By that, 1-color is not as big as the 4-color part in the growing rates, what we see. That can have different side effects because you might have more suppliers in 1-color than in 4-color. But we see that the products are getting, let's say, more unique in the way how it's presented. The challenge is then now, if we want to make that also in short run, that we can't have any solution which makes any differences in quality or make restrictions on the product itself, because publishers want to differentiate their products to others. Yeah, they present their content differently, and there needs to be this variability. So it's not possible to say, okay, dear publisher, if you standardize your formats and if you minimize your amount of papers you want to use, then we can make something like that possible, because this is in the first step not interesting for the publishers. In the second step also would be the effort way too big, because we need to understand if that's an existing title, what a publisher is publishing these days was published before in offset. And now we start, okay, we need to standardize to make it more efficient and you can place orders in shorter runs. That's a huge effort for the publisher, because first of all, he needs to talk to the author, he needs to talk to the designers, to the editors, if this is allowed to change designs, formats, papers, and so on. Then he has to redesign the product, then he needs to make a new PDF for this product. And to make that for 350 copies is not interesting, because cost to that what you get is not matching anymore to each other. So therefore, we need a solution which gives the full flexibility as we have it in offset, also for the short run production. So everything what we do in offset, we need to do also be possible to reproduce that in the short run production with no limitations. So the question is, can Inkjet support this? It is clear for us that we, based on the cost structure, what we have in short run production with the offset equipment we had, that we it was necessary for us to invest into digital. Because this is the main cost driver in that type of production. What we investigated, you need to understand that we were not looking in the digital production or digital printed productions in 2017 or 2016. This was starting already in 2012, where we started to look what kind of possibilities do we have? Is there any solutions in the market which can supply the quality demands what we have? And in that time, to be frank, the digital print was not on this stage. It was good in photo book, in let's say in liquid toner printing, high quality for photo books, but also it was a cost topic, plus
I can't hear you, Mark.
Hello, hello.
I can hear you again.
Oh, now it's working again. So my headphone went off. Sorry for that confusion. So we were investigating over years the development steps in digital print, and we saw that there is a high potential in inkjet technology because price performance wise plus quality wise, it is matching to that offset demands what we have. So it was clear that toner is high quality for sure, but toner has pure toner has more an impact on the print result because you have like a film layer of color applying on a paper. So you can print on more or less any substrate, but at the end you have a very glossy, shiny thing on top of it. And that's something what our publishers for their products doesn't like. So it's not wished. So therefore you need to find something. It was important to find something which is more equal to the offset results. Going for inkjet. To be frank, yes, we made a decision with our partner Canon to go in the inkjet technology with the i300s, which we are using today and where we are very happy. But of course, I mean, it's not plug and play. So we had difficulties in the beginning because our demands are different maybe than like a conventional digital printer because we are working with publishers, not with end customers, even though an end customer would not tell the difference, but on the purchasing or the production part of the publishing houses, they are looking with their loops on the results and they are claiming points. So for us, it was like a learning process in a partnership with our supplier. What is our demand? So it was not possible for us to say, okay, we use inkjet treated paper. So it has to be the offset papers. Doesn't matter if they are coated, uncoated, wood containing, wood free, different coatings, matte gloss, silk. So the machine and the technology which we were implementing needs to cover all of that because this is exactly what we have in offset. And the first one in offset needs to be exactly like then the short run produced as a reprint in digital. And we need to understand that we as a publisher supplier are totally different evaluated by the publishers because they know our offset quality. So we can't deliver two different types of qualities. Where in a pure digital printer, they don't know a different type of quality which coming from that printer. So, but for us, the challenge was that it needs to match. And this is something I think what we achieved. During that while when we were starting, and we were starting that business end of 2017, and since then it's going quite well. So we overcome all the problems what we have in the beginning. So also the topic was uptimes of the machines, and I have to say I'm very impressed about what we have today and the uptime what the machines are delivering. We are running 24/7 production, and the machines are running in a very continuous positive level. And the print quality is convincing now our customers. And this is a very important topic because what we want to achieve or what is our goal is that we don't want to discuss with our publishing houses these days what kind of printing technology we are using. The thing what we want to be a service supplier for our publishers. And they just ask, okay, I need 150 copies of this title. And we don't discuss how we are going to produce that. So the quality matches, and we are convincing our clients these days that they don't see the differences anymore between these two production ways. And with that, we get the acceptance that they don't even ask anymore, is that digital printed or is it offset printed? And this is exactly where every offset printer who goes into digital need to come to the same spec. Don't promote that you can do digital print. It's just about processing. You want 150, we make the decision, we guarantee the quality. And we see that for the publishers, what we are working with, that this possibility to place multiple titles in shorter runs at the same time gives them also an advantage because they make their content available even for slow selling titles or backlist titles because there's always a market somewhere, but not in these big runs what we have in offset. And they can take off the profitability out of these. The difference is then, let's say, give you an example, before they were ordering maybe 5 offset orders in a month. Now they place one order with 65 titles at the same time. Yeah. So, but the total sum is then at the amount of books which they sell in the market, more or less the same like these 5 big runs. Yeah, so it's a very good business also for the publishing houses, and we see more and more acceptance for that, and more publishers are going into this direction. From the growth rates, since we were starting, and I'm counting only 2018 as a starting point, because before that it was more or less we need to test, we need to see the processes, how it works. The growth rates are 70% in black and white production already, and 102% in 4-color, and 4-color soon. So the products are complicated. To answer the question, was Inkjet the right decision for us? Yes, it was, and we would always do the same decision. Will we continue to invest? Yes, we are going to, and we already did. So we are exchanging our existing i300s to the new version to get higher qualities that we can enter even deeper in our markets, like coffee table, in the more art book sector, in cookbooks and those things, that it's getting even nearer to that part. Is such a decision plug and play as an offset printer? No, it's not. So it's important that you find the right partner which you want to work with. It's a learning curve for both parties, because your partner needs to understand what are your demands. It's not that we want to be, let's say it in proper English, a pain in the ass to our suppliers. It's more about that they understand what we are facing and how we need to picture that. So it's a learning process from both sides. To achieve what you're asking for. You need to test your own papers. You need to specify these papers that everything is working. So it's not plug and play, but it's worthwhile going this step. Is that all to start to cover the demands what the publishers are asking for you? It's definitely not. So the first step is the printing. That's high cost, which you can reduce. But you need to understand that when you offer something like that to publishers, and if they start to place orders in multiple titles at the same time with the same delivery time, you need to think about how to reduce the administrative work, how to register these projects, how to make the files, and all these things. So for that, also there we were heavily investing into workflow technologies, system-wise. We were heavily investing also in the finishing device, because you can't use a standard sewing machine for digital produced products. So you need dedicated machines to do that. We duplicated processes like the binding processes, casing in, case making, laminating, all what is necessary. Yes, we are still using also offset processes for special parts like embossing, debossing, foil stamping, and such things, because we need to offer that. So this is not dedicated, but the core products you need more or less to duplicate in your process, that you can make faster throughput times, availabilities for the clients possible. So it's a challenge, but it's a positive challenge, and there is a very good business behind it. And it's different, but it has its different demands comparing to B2C businesses. We are using Injet. We are happy to use Inkjet. That was my part from my presentation. As I said, it's not so much deep into technology driven. If you have asked questions in that direction, I'm happy to answer you the question. For me, it was more important to give you a little bit an understanding why we were making those steps, and why it was important for us, and how does that help to our clients.
Mark, that was very informative, and I've already got a list of questions here, because you touched on such key points. Because I'm a consultant in the industry, and a lot of, let's call it litho printers that are going into Inkjet just find that transition really, really challenging. And I think from when you started to now, I think a lot of the vendors have now understand the challenges that you face, it's a lot easier to have the transition. But I think an interesting point was you were always litho, then you went digital. And when you introduced digital to your customers, that must have been, okay, how much, because you're cutting out processes with Inkjet, how much is this going to save me? So with your expectations that you're dropping the price now because you've got this new technology, you're cutting out processes, was there a lot of pressure from customers to say, okay, this is going to cost me less?
Yeah, the expectations, I mean, that is it was a challenge. I mean, the expectations was, yeah, you go digital, it has to be cheaper. So when they were starting to compare an 5,000 run and offset with the unit price and expecting that for 200, it was a teaching moment also from our side to explain them, no, so either we compare apples with apples, that means 500 copies in offset versus 500 copies in digital to give you a price range. That was the challenging part.
Because once you drop that price, you can't get up again. I mean, you stuck there.
Dropping is very easy. Raising is mission impossible. But it was a learning curve. That's what I said. I mean, let's say the publishing sector or these purchasing guys from publishing, they were caught up in their two-dimensional view how a product cost needs to be to make a profit out of it. Yeah. They were not considering in that phases, let's say, how many, and if you look at these distribution center, how many unsold books are just laying there?
Exactly.
Millions of books, millions of titles, which are just unsold. And if you then understand that after 18 months, the storage space is more expensive than the value of the book itself. And then they take out this book and they are, let's say, they recycle those books, which cost them again. And this is something what an offset printer, when you are close to your publishing houses, needs to discuss continuously. To say, okay, if you consider certain prices, it might be that it's, and we are not talking that it's double prices or triple prices, the short run. We are talking there are slightly higher prices, slightly, especially in the 4-color soon market. But if they understand then, okay, what is the safeness behind it? Because the risk is going down. The capital investment which is locked is down. At the end of the year, the EBIT of the publishing house is much better because they have less wind up money into the storages. Then they understand, and if the knot is open up at the publisher, then you see the movements, and then those movements are quite fast and quite demanding. Yeah.
And it's interesting that because obviously when you're investing in a press for, let's call it publishing, that's one thing that the litho printer needs to look at, because he doesn't need all the storage space. He's cutting out so many processes. Let's face it, processes is hands touching the system. It's all cost savings. So if you look at the price of an inkjet press versus all these cost savings, you're meeting somewhere, and sometimes a lot of those costs are forgotten and but this is the price of the press. Wow. But if you think about the cost savings, when you tick every little box in that value chain, it's, there's actually huge cost savings over a period.
Yeah, it is for all sides, but you will also have to say, if you come from offset, pure offset, and the mindset is offset, it's also from the printer mindset change. And this is also a challenging part because certain things are different, and also what you need to understand. I mean, it's not everything gold with these inkjet presses. They are extremely sensitive if you compare it to an offset press. An offset press, if the paper dimensions are not 100% correct, it's still working. An inkjet press, it's very, very sensitive to those topics. So you have two goals. I'm always telling in our production, we have two goals. One is the liquid gold, comes from the supplier, and the second one is the paper, because the cut-off preciseness of these cutted sheets needs to be so precise. When I was hearing that the first time, I was asking, we are not in the metal business. We are working with paper. So you need to implement also different ways of processes, how to prepare the materials, because we are always coming from offset sheet sizes. So that's why we are using offset papers, because let's say to order small reams in precise cuttings, it would be too cost driven. So we take just our standard formats, what we have, and we cut out the print sheet sizes, what we need for this production. But then we may need to make sure that this is precise enough. So you need to specify, don't cut thicker than what your hand can hold. Cut 4 sides instead of 2. So this is all these things what you need to change also in the offset way of thinking. But if you have that under control, then it's working very smoothly, and then you are starting to save extremely costs.
When you and we spoke a little bit yesterday as a prep for this session here, Mark, and I can't help think about. I mean, I know you have given a very excellent presentation about all the considerations, and though I was doing something else, I did listen to your presentation. It seems that some presenters always think that they should send everything in the middle of something else, so that's why you have to multitask. Because you got the Canon cut sheet devices now for your inkjet production. What kind of considerations did you have before choosing whether you should go cut sheet or should be roll based?
This is very easily answered. Also for roll based production, we use also Canon in black and white. That's a black and white magnet because that's the equal part for our Timson press what we have in black and white. It's glued books, it's not sewn books. The 4-color market segment is for us totally different because this is mainly sewn products, not glued products. One different disadvantage for web printing in that situation. And the second point is the enormous amount of medias which we are using.
Yeah.
So I would waste too much time. Also, if I would be a client who offers 3 papers, then yes, we can go this way. Web would work. But since we are in publishing sector and we are serving, we are 99% export companies across Europe, and every publisher in every country has a different taste of paper. And you have these discussions. Even sometimes you think about it's ridiculous to discuss that because you know that it comes from the same mill. It's just have a different name. But we are facing exactly the situation. And with that, if you rewind it in web role changes, you would not make any sense. You would lose and lose and lose.
Yeah. And what about sheet size? Because that we also spoke about yesterday.
Yes, we need to live with that what we have. It's working. Also, don't get it wrong. It's working and it's performing well, and we are really, really, really happy with the solution what we have because I know from the past when I was at Müllertime and talking to these big Shutterflies and those guys, and when I was looking at these digital presses and these realistic uptime availability of the machines, I was quite astonished and shocked, let's say this, because it meant you need at least 2 that one is always working. That's what I said, this is under control on our side, and it's more or less on offset availability. Also, we really have to admit it. When the machines are working, they are working very, very, very stable. The sheet size is given based on where the company came from. As an offset printer and how we see it, because we need to understand we are not talking about print on demand copy 1. We are not even talking about copy 50. Also it more or less the average 4-color job is 480 in digital print. So for my interest in it, my dream, if I can make a wish, I need it bigger. I need at least B2 because also the finishing equipment is based on B2 sizes, which then also optimize my finishing costs because especially the sewing process is the most expensive process in that part. If you have 250 copies on 144 pages, the sewing costs are more expensive, and that is a machine which is not so expensive like a perfect binder than the binding process then afterwards. And if I can go instead of 4-page 4 times collected into 8-page twice collected, I halve those costs. So in long term, I hope we get it wider.
So question, did you go for online finishing? So white paper in, book block out the other side? Did you try and do that as much as possible? Or because you got multiple
inline or nearline?
Yeah. What did you go?
I'm a mechanical engineer from my studying. And there is one rule in this connection. It sounds always nice if you hear everything inline, no touch point, no humans, PDF in, book out, everything is automated. Yes, in your dreams. Because there is a rule in mechanics, and the rule is the availability rates for each device is accumulating because you can never define that all devices have a problem at the same time. So as more devices I'm connecting to each other, as less books at the end comes out. So I saw installations which were really amazing on the paper and even when they were installed. But when I was seeing these installations, I could sign a contract that there never a book comes out because it's like mission impossible. So what you need to do is efficient way of your production and workflows. Because even in a nearline process, you can design workflows which are more or less representing an inline process. And with that, you decouple, because between every process, you are building up buffer zones. So if you have an issue on the printing press, but it was working before, you can still do finishing. If you have an issue on the sewing machine, for example, and that can happen, it's mechanics, it's machines.
Of course.
You can build up the buffer from printing. So with that, you are way more flexible than if everything would be inline. Yeah, in the dream, it looks nice, but I think in our segment and those products which we need to do, it's like impossible.
I can tell you, and to the people that are attending here, that on Friday we have one of your colleagues from Germany who has a different approach. It's Bell's Grafische Betrieb. Maybe you know Michael Tuchner, and because they have invested in, and maybe of course the product mix may be very different from yours, but it's also a combination of a offset and digital company, and they chose to go with the T240 roll-based machine, and then they had like a plow folder and Mechanotechnica on the sewing side, and then they used Hunkler, so they had like one solution that was online and one that was near online. So I think that what you're talking about is maybe because I don't know Bell's personally, so I don't know that, but I know Livonia, and you have a lot of high arts or really art books, and you have, as you said, a huge diversity in papers and offerings, things like that. So I'm totally sure that you're right, but I'm just saying that for those interested in this, it could be interesting to combine your session also with the Hunkler session on Friday, because I think that will give two different views on the same subject, basically, right?
Definitely. I mean, these Bells is a well-known printer in Germany, and they make good quality. Also, definitely, they are doing quite good quality. With this approach, I think they are specializing on a certain type of product.
I totally agree.
That's how this is how for us. Let's say we want to be, we need to be extremely flexible. Yeah, and there I don't see the advantage for inline production at these days. It might change. I mean, let's see in 5 years from now, everything is getting more stable. We have different drive concepts where there is no failures. Then it might be different.
The one question everybody's asking here is the break even between offset and litho.
That's the magic words.
I can answer it if you want to. It's 2,288 1+1, and it's 3,288 if it's 4 pages, and 15,672 if it's. No, just kidding.
I mean, I can answer it. I can answer it. It's slightly. So.
Also, you didn't like my answer, Mark?
I would be happy if that would be possible. If that would be possible, I would. Yeah, then we would only have digital presses. Let's say it this way. No, it's you can't say fixed. It's 700 or it's 800 in 4-color. It is always in dependency on the format of the product and the amount of pages within it. So if you have a large format with less papers, the break even can go easily up to 1,100, 1,200 copies in 4-color production between the offset machine. If you have the same product now with 256 pages, it goes down to 300 copies. If you look at the 1-color web production, it's acting a little bit different. As more pages it has, also at more signatures it would have, as higher the break even is getting. So what is the rough rule in our house is 4-color till 750, and 1-color for the moment till 1,500 copies. That's the break even between two processes. But it will be in future more dynamically, because the system what we are building will make the decision for the clients. Yeah?
But then I have an extension to that question, because I was actually a little bit surprised when you said that the average order on 4-color projects was this 480, and also that you have this relatively high break even before it's valuable to go offset. And I can't help think about, if you have this one, I think a big concern for people that are considering moving into Inkjet is the uncertainty of ink cost. And I was just wondering, your books, typically, is that like picture books and a lot of high density inks, or is it more like illustration that you have? I mean, I'm not asking for like average ink consumption, because that will not couldn't relate to it. But I was just wondering, if you have very ink-intensive books, then of course also the break-even point would be lower, right?
Yes, but we are producing, as I said, we are not producing these as once in a while. We are producing a cookbook, but there I have to admit, the momentary resolution of the printing machine is good, but not good enough for cookbooks. Yeah,
Okay.
for some it's working, but it's also dependency on the paper.
Yeah.
But we are producing everything, and quite a lot of children books, full color printed children books, full coverage on the entire thing, and this is working fine on this till 1,200 copies. So the risk is not so high. Yeah. In cookbook, it could be maybe then differently because of the dimension of the books and the colorness which is necessary. That can be different then. Yeah.
So one of the other questions you raised was the crossover easy? And we all know it's a challenge. I'm interested in the way your business handled it, because were you in the position you were in previously, or is your position all because it's needed and you need a different sales mentality to sell it and to talk your way through, what goes where, because it is very much a different technology and you've got to change your business model. So what about sales and those kind of business development? Where does that come in?
Yes, it is. Let's say, when you start, the idea is given, the vision is given, you see the need. You see the need in the segment, you see the need in the market, you see the need at the publishing houses. But the transformation was to talk to the publishers, to convince them about these things, because they were caught up in their view. In their view was offset. And therefore my position was then generated, first of all, to give an outside input, how I see that business, plus how we can make a business model out of it, and plus to talk to the clients, together with our sales team. And I have to say, it was in the beginning, let's say, more questions about the quality, not more about the business. And the second step then by the business, because then you were talking about the prices. Yeah.
Yes.
But I have to say, there is a transformation, and this is not done overnight. This is not plug and play just because you had the vision and with the owner you were making this business model. It takes a little bit of time. But if you understand how everything is connected to each other, if you understand what is the benefit then for the publishers, and you can present those benefits to the publishers, then it's not a difficult part. And from adjustment from the sales part, that was quite quickly then, because they can supply the publishers whatever they like and give them the maximum flexibility. They don't need to be any more concerned about any quality issues and claims from customers which are coming. So this is very seldom. So I think this transformation is done. But in the beginning, you feel a lot of resistance.
Of course. Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
Fantastic. And if you look at from Livonia's perspective, is it you have the one color roll based, and then is it four color machines you have?
Also we have one color roll based, two cut sheet 4-color presses, and one image press for cover printing.
Covers, yeah. So, is this? Probably ink prices will fall, and probably a lot of things will change in maybe consumer behaviors from that perspective. So, do you expect to invest more in Inkjet in the nearby or in the longer perspective?
As I said, we are exchanging now the existing ones to the newer versions.
Yeah.
So we are still investing.
Yeah, but that's still like the same capacity, right? It's more because
no, it's a little bit more. So the machine is a little bit more faster. It has a little bit wider sheet sizes, so it's getting more efficient. For me, more important is the quality than at the end. Less discussions at the end. But for sure, we are extending. We are thinking about many things, what we can do and which directions. Hopefully, then also in the wider part. But there is clear, and we see the proof these days that the business is working. And since the business is working, there's no blocking for any investments in this direction further on.
And what about?
You carry on. I'll ask the next one.
Okay. Just a quick question, because when I met you the last time in person, that was with the Online Print Symposium in Munich, just before the lockdown. Actually, I think it was a week before, something like that. The last trip, yeah. We also spoke about that you used the Crispy Mountains MIS systems, so the solutions. Are you still using that? And because that is also quite important part of your flow and everything, right?
Yes, we are still using that. It's still under development. I mean, this is a little bit my pain point, what I have, because I was
Oh, I shouldn't have asked, right?
I was expecting that I'm finished with everything within 18 months latest, yeah, and now it's a little bit longer than that. But it's very challenging. Also, what you need to understand, what we build with that is that we combine all administrative logic, even the technologists who make then the layouts and the folding schemas and whatever is necessary, automated by a computer. And to teach, I mean, if you look at human look at one job and makes for this specific one job a solution. And now you try to formulate an algorithm which is then doing for all the job these logics at the same time. So there is some challenges, but we are more or less on the right direction. It's more or less finished, which gives then the possibilities to reduce maximum the administrative effort.
Isn't that nice?
For offset and for digital. Also we are not splitting there. Digital is already done, but now the offset part, and then we are releasing completely.
So obviously, huge market for short-run books. That's where it fits in. What about variable? Have you started pushing the fact that you can have different titles in different geographies, different countries with variable information? Is that something you've started talking to publishers about, the capabilities of Inkjet on a variable side?
You mean as a VDP production?
Yes. Are you bringing VDP into it?
As a VDP, I think that would be too much for our publishers these days. I mean, for sure, in educational, don't take it wrong, educational publishing houses, for sure, there's already proofs in the market that this is working. But let's say on these traditional, conventional, belletristic and children books, that would be a little bit too fast in these days. The potential is giving, but it has also a disadvantage. The disadvantage is because for VDP printing, and we are talking, I'm not talking about softcover. Softcover is for us not, it's a book and we are producing it, but let's say it's not the high value book what we are producing.
Yeah.
And VDP would mean that you need to standardize. That means formats, because the cover needs to match to the product. And in softcover, I cut off what is too much, and with that I have a variable product. Not a big deal. In hardcover, the case needs to match to exactly to this product. So that means I would need to say, okay, publisher, you need to standardize. And this is then the challenging part, because they need to prepare these VDP data. They need to change everything. They need to adjust. They need to take out certain parts. They need to add certain parts. And I think that is, let's say, the effort, what the publishers need to do, less for us, the production, we have the capabilities. From the production part, it's not a big deal then. But the work I would push to the publisher to make something like that possible, I think that at this stage, since the value of the product is not getting higher, so the sales price is the same. If they can triple the price because it's personalized, for example, different topic. But if that's the same, the effort is not worth it.
Okay, and makes sense. I mean, I was just wondering if it's moved on a bit and people have started getting a bit more creative. But you know, it does bring its own challenges, as you say.
What we can try is to, let's say, to make a personal note on a cover, you personally based on a run. Yeah, if they know that we have 500 orders with this person, that would be, I think, the first starting point to work with publishers in this VDP world.
Yeah.
We got a question from Henrik Christiansen. He says, how do you educate your sales force to help the customers choose between technologies? And based on what you said before, I would say you don't.
Don't.
Right.
Don't discuss technology. It is a strict rule. Don't discuss technology. You want 200, you get 200, no matter how.
Yeah, and that is why you also said that it's such a big focus for you to focus on the quality. So basically, let's say that I ask for a book from you, and let's say I order 480 copies in color, and you when I asked for the quote, you gave me a quote based on the information, the paper, the size, the whatever you need, right? I can't help think about now you get the files and you figure out, okay, damn it, it was a cookbook. And now it's actually just in the break-even point. So will you also decide the production technology based on the content, or is it more based on the hard facts in the beginning, or whether people talk about that in the beginning, whether it's image densities are high, or how will you carry on with that one?
Also in the momentary situation, if we would see, okay, let's say you were putting in a photographer art book and you were choosing Inkjet. Let's say you were choosing a process which goes out for Inkjet and we don't know that it's working. First step we would try to switch. Unfortunately, we can't do that automatically at this stage, maybe in future, because there are processes where we can read out files, where we know the ink coverage, where we know everything about that. But that needs to be implemented. So everything needs to come step by step.
Yeah.
But that would be a manual interfering in this situation.
That's what keep you busy, right, Mark? Figure out how to do that, right?
Software-wise, yeah.
Yeah.
The production is busy to find then the right way how we can deliver you the product that you are happy then afterwards. But this happens quite seldom. Because what we do also in the portal, when you define the product, let's say we are predefining also the genre, what kind of type of product it is. Yeah. And so if you are a good client, you are filling out this form, because also there we are building that system to teach that our industry need to learn to work with semantics. As more semantic informations we are gathering, like Google, as better the result is to predict certain things. Yeah. And I think this is a very big missing component in our industry, because we were not used to that. Yeah.
Well, fantastic, Mark. I don't know if you have any more questions, Jean, but I think that we are a little bit, we have a good time for once. I can tell you yesterday, it was like, I had to leave like 1 minute before the next session. And I think it was a wonderful presentation. I think it's very educational to have the insights from a company and a guy like you who actually uses all the equipment that the vendors are talking about and giving your insights to it. I think that gives a very nice dimension to some of the things that I don't think that vendors keep it away from us, but because their job is different than yours, they obviously have different perspectives on it. So Mark, I want to thank you very much for your time here. I appreciate it a lot, and I hope that the audience also appreciate it. So thank you very much, and also for the good questions, Jean. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
It was very informative. I enjoyed that. I got to say, as you say, it was great to hear it from a printer's point of view and the challenges they faced and how they overcame them. So fantastic. Thank you, Mark.
You're welcome. Thank you for having the time, having me.
See you.
See you.
Ciao.
Bye.
Yeah, ciao. Bye.